On today's episode,
just giving a woman the chance to chit-chat with someone while her kids are playing on the playground. That can be huge. Sometimes that's all you need. Women are strong. They can do tough things. A lot of times they're just looking for a little support, just a little help, which is true of everyone. That's not unique to those with an unplanned pregnancy. We all can, if we're honest, empathize and get where that comes from.
Welcome to the Life Challenges podcast from Christian Life Resources. People today face many opportunities and struggles when it comes to issues of life and death, marriage and family, health and science. We're here to bring a fresh biblical perspective to these issues and more. Join us now for Life Challenges.
hi, and welcome back. I'm Krista Potratz, and I'm here today with Pastor Bob Fleischman, and we have a special guest with us today, Rachel Greiner from Christian Life Resources, and we've had Rachel on the podcast before, and we'll definitely link that episode to in our show notes for anybody who hasn't heard Rachel. It gives her great background story and everything too. But we really wanted to have Rachel on today to talk about this topic. Is basically the question if women are being ignored by pro-lifers. This topic really is of high interest to me personally. When I started getting interested in the pro-life movement, which was a few years before we started doing the podcast here, I would go online and watch these videos. And they're still up there too, just with interactions like with college students and young people with pro-lifers. And so many of the points always came back to, well, you pro-lifers don't care at all about the woman. You just care about the baby. And that just seems to be really embedded in the pro-abortion side, the pro-choice side. And I think it's just really great to talk about because, like anything, it's always good to see where the other side is coming from and then being able to reflect on that too. And so Rachel, I think, will be great with this conversation too, talking about this topic. So we are told that pro-lifers only care about the baby and not about the woman. Is this true? Do pro-lifers really care about women?
I think throughout history, we've noticed that if something gets repeated frequently enough, that it eventually just gets embraced by society. And I think this is a really good example of that, where we've heard it so often that a lot of people believe, oh, it must be true because I've heard it so much. The other day, I was looking into something related to that. There's this idea called the illusory truth effect. And it's the idea, again, that if you repeat something often enough, it's easier for you to believe it, regardless of if it's true. And I was looking at it in the context of there was an MIT website that was talking about that idea that we only use 10% of our brain, which I think is generous for some of us. But MIT actually said that wasn't true. They debunked it. And part of it goes to semantics, but the idea that actually we use a lot more of our brain every single day. But I had always heard that myth and I bought it hook, line, and sinker. And I think this is a little bit something like that. And I think sometimes I hope that sometimes it's coming from people who genuinely do care about women and are confused or concerned that they're getting left behind. I think some of the people do not have good intentions, but I'm hoping that a small portion of those people at least are just really, really uninformed. And it's funny when I hear things about, do pro-lifers care about women? Because a large percentage of pro-lifers are women. And we're having conversations with women. And I always thought that was interesting, especially if they say, do you really care about women? I would say we really care about women. But talk is cheap. We've all had people say things that weren't true to us, or we've maybe signed up for a cell phone. And we think this deal seems amazing. And all it takes is a month or two to realize it wasn't as good as it sounded. And so it costs me nothing to say, I support women or I believe in women. That costs nothing, a few seconds of my time. So I think instead of getting caught up with people what people say. It's great for us to look at what are the actions? How do we back this up? What are the numbers? And the numbers are pretty convincing to me. We do some research based on the services that pregnancy centers offer, and there's thousands of them across the country, far more of them than there are, for example, abortion clinics. And we have figured out, and I say we, I mean Charlotte Lozier and smarter people than me, have figured out that pregnancy centers offer a value of well over $300 million. And again, these pregnancy clinics are offering them at zero cost. And so that can't be debated. And those are services focused on the women. We also know that when women leave pregnancy centers and they are surveyed about their experience, they consistently will say, to a tune of about 97%, that they are very, very satisfied with their experience at a pregnancy center. Because again, I can say all kinds of things. The proof is in the pudding. What do the people say who are having these difficult, unplanned pregnancies? And so the beautiful thing is, with people like you, we get to collaborate and we get to make sure that these women are supported and that it isn't just lip service, that we are walking with them step by step, no matter what they decide, years and years after the pregnancy.
Shortly after the Dobbs decision, I was out on the West Coast visiting one of our churches, and a couple wanted to meet with the pastor and me, and I was traveling with another staff member, and we met with the couple, and they were very, pro-life, but they too had kind of almost bought into the idea that the pro-life community doesn't show concern for the woman, and they were just saying that they were disturbed over how celebratory the pro-life community was about the Dobbs decision, because now all of these women are going to suffer. And it's exactly what Rachel was saying, is that you kind of keep repeating a mantra, which is always the way that public opinion is shifted, is that you introduce a mantra, you keep, like we see it at the end of life, death with dignity. And then pretty soon pro-life people use the term. And so you introduce a mantra that all they care about is the baby, and the mother, suffers throughout all this, and it's terrible and everything. Well, first of all, there's a practical element. Abortion is killing the baby. Abortion isn't killing the mother, it's killing the baby. So of course we're concerned about the most at-risk person. But we've always demonstrated a concern for both, because it begins with a conversation, not with the baby, but with the mother. It begins with the conversation with the mother. And all of our support services in our pregnancy care centers are all structured to support the mother in what she's doing, because the baby is in the womb. We can't do anything more than work with the mother.
Yeah. And prepping for this too, I was really trying to think a little bit about, okay, like from our end, this is just not the way we see it, right? Like we do see that we really care about the mom. And so I was thinking too, like, well, okay, with the other side, we say like that they don't care at all about the baby, right? And I mean, but when you talk to like pro-choice people too, a lot of them like will say, that they do love children and they do care about babies, but because they care about the baby, they feel like that the child growing up in a world or a suffering environment, that is how they care about the baby, like that they should not get that opportunity. Now, from us, we would say, oh my goodness, that's just terrible to kill the baby. You can't do that. But I mean, it did just open up my eyes to maybe see it differently. For us, we say that we care about the mom because of all these other things we do, but they put us in a box because the one thing that we don't do is want to give her the choice to make that decision. Just really trying to think about how we maybe also put the other side in a box too, in some ways.
Yeah, it's definitely easier to just make assumptions about people than to actually engage with them and do the hard work of listening, not to have a comeback or a drop the mic moment, but to understand where they're coming from. And in my experience, a lot of times, some of the more passionate advocates for abortion, there is some sort of experience that maybe a friend had, or even it could be a really compelling TikTok story. But I think often it is tied to something like that. As soon as you can put a face or attach a name to something, it carries a different weight, which is part of why ultrasound can be so powerful. Is because it's one thing to use euphemisms and words, but when you see something, it becomes very different. And I think with what you're talking about, I completely agree, especially with the issue of poverty. I think we've both seen or heard people say again and again, well, the truly compassionate thing is to prevent this child from suffering. And so instead of preventing the suffering, we prevent the child. And so this idea of, there's these women who are facing real challenges, whether it's relational or it has to do with poverty. And rather than working together across lines to battle poverty, that the solution, if you want to call it that, is to eliminate people who would potentially live in poverty. And when we talk about putting someone in a box, it's hard to think of a more dramatic way to put someone in a box than to say before they're even born that we know exactly how their life is going to unfold and whether or not we think it's good enough to warrant them getting to remain alive.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times this gets into polemics, how the matter is debated. And I'm always struck by the power of making an accusation without ever supporting it. Like, for example, they'll say, well, you don't really love women. Well, you can say that, but based on what? What's the evidence? What's the evidence that pro-life people do not love women? Like Rachel pointed out, the majority of them that are in high-profile positions are women. It's so you're suggesting that they hate themselves in the process of having this love affair with the child. It's sometimes it's just illogical, but there's a lot to that argument that you keep telling people that, and they begin to swallow it hook, line, and sinker without ever challenging the presupposition. And I've learned anything as I've gotten older, it's just that just because somebody says something doesn't mean I have to buy it. Mm-hmm. So when they come to me and they'll say, well, you guys don't care about mothers, my response now would be, well, give me an example.
One of the things when they say, we don't like women or something, it is going back to like, well, we don't respect their ability to choose or that they can make this choice. One of the things, though, I always just think, what choice are we really giving to the women to make? The choice is to kill their child because at the moment of conception, too, we believe that woman is a mother, right? And so, she already is a mother. And so the choice is to end the life of her child or to raise the child. It's really not to be a mother or not, because she really is a mother at that point. And so what we're the choice that we're giving, I just always think too, just there's such a mental component with it too. And sometimes, and I know Rachel, you can probably speak to this too, but that people maybe don't even understand the choice they made until years down the road and what that choice really meant to people.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. If we are showing respect to someone, I think two of the ways we do that is making sure that they have time to process the information and to do some personal soul searching and figure out what do they want, weighing the pros and the cons, and then also making sure they have accurate information. I'd like to think, and this is something I would discuss with clients very often when I was working at a pregnancy clinic, I'd like to think that I can be decisive and that I can make tough decisions. But when I really get stressed out about decisions is often when I don't feel like I have all the information. And so I think one of the best ways that we can respect women is to make sure they have accurate information and that they're given the space to figure out what is going to help them thrive, what will be best for them and their families. And that is not what happens when a woman is coerced and pressured into an abortion. And that is what the statistics say. Even from those who are in favor of abortion, consistently in their studies, I've seen that the majority of women who have an abortion have stated that they were coerced or pressured into that decision. And so to me, that's the opposite of empowerment. And I think that's part of why, like, the original feminists, in my opinion, the first wave ones who fought for the right to vote, were consistently pro-life. We see that with people like Alice Paul and Elizabeth Cady Stanton. They believed that part of women's empowerment was the ability to choose what's best for them and their families, and choosing life and being supported and being empowered. I don't respect a person by telling them, you're weak, you can't do this. I support and empower them by saying, you are strong, you can do hard things, and we're going to be with you every step of the way. And you see that even with grants. So, for example, I live in Wisconsin, and Wisconsin Right to Life is a wonderful organization. And I've collaborated with them a number of times over the years, where they will generously support moms who are either expecting or recently had a kid. It can be everything from helping with a month or two of rent to, I remember us getting an air conditioner into an apartment, and you don't realize how weak you are until you try to move a heavy air conditioner. And so that's how we show respect. That's how we empower them. That's what a real choice looks like. And I've never yet met, I'm sure they exist, but I've never yet met a woman who said she regretted continuing her pregnancy. I have met person after person of all different backgrounds who have shared with me about some of the scars that they carry from an abortion.
Rachel, you've touched on to some of the things that the pro-life side does for women. One of the things that resonated with me too is when you were saying how much money our pregnancy centers put out every year for women. And just kind of in contrast to when a woman goes to an abortion facility, I mean, she has to pay for that. That's really different right there. I mean, in many cases. But what other things I mean, as particularly as Christians too, do we do for women when they are in these situations?
I am beyond blessed that I get paid to do pro-life work, but I think there is a purity to those who do it for free, for those who don't have a vested interest, at least financially. When a woman enters a pregnancy clinic and she gets information, these are people who are not going to benefit financially on whether or not she chooses life. They don't have services for which they charge. And I think that is a big piece.
What support do we offer women when they choose life?
So some people might think that when a woman chooses life, as pro-lifers, we're done. Mission accomplished. It's the end of the story. And a lot of times we would say that is just the beginning of the story, because it's one thing to take some time, have someone genuinely listen to you, which is very unusual these days, I feel like, for someone to really be present and give you a safe place to speak without pushing an agenda on you. And after a woman makes that decision at a pregnancy clinic, oftentimes, it's when she gets back home that things get real. It's when she starts picturing, where am I going to put the baby? How are we going to pay for this bill? What doctor am I going to go to? I haven't been to a doctor in years, and things like that. And so that's where I see the beauty of pro-lifers walking with women, because they're still there the next day. It's not something transactional where you just visit these clinics and then you leave. Very often women and men will return to these pregnancy clinics and maintain these relationships for years and years and years. And I've seen that firsthand. And so the support can take a number of different forms. Spiritual support is something naturally with Christian Life Resources that we believe is powerful, because we have all sat in situations where with our earthly eyes, we looked at it and we thought, there is no way this will be okay. There's no way this works out. There's no reason to have hope based on what I'm observing. And again in my life, and I'm sure in your lives as well, that's when God shows that he's supernatural and that his ways are so much higher than our ways, because he'll bring in a solution that is better than anything I dreamed. And so that spiritual component is powerful. Prayer is powerful. I'm so thankful that at Christian Life Resources, we have a number of people who serve as prayer warriors, where they'll regularly receive different topics to pray about. And there is no doubt in my mind that God is using that in powerful ways. We know in James 5, it talks about the prayers of a righteous person. So we know that's powerful. There's the spiritual part. There's the emotional part. This could be just giving a woman the chance to chit chat with someone while her kids are playing on the playground. that can be huge. Sometimes that's all you need. Women are strong. They can do tough things. A lot of times they're just looking for a little support, just a little help, which is true of everyone. That's not unique to those with an unplanned pregnancy. We all can, if we're honest, empathize and get where that comes from. Materially, there's a range of different things. So it could be everything, again, from helping with furniture, which I've been involved with, to helping with diapers and wipes. And again, sometimes people might think, oh, it's just diapers and wipes. But if you've ever been a parent, you understand the importance of diapers and wipes. It could be clean clothes for your kid. It could be parenting classes, so practical education. If you haven't been raised by a very involved, loving, supportive parent, one of your biggest fears with an unplanned pregnancy might be, how do I do something I've never seen modeled? And that's where parenting classes and books and resources and mentoring come into play. The medical part, every pregnancy center is a little bit different, but some are incredibly comprehensive, where they help with things like prenatal care. Lactation experts can be on the grounds. It's unbelievable. Some will have licensed counselors serving, and so there's that piece as well.
Well, and then also our Home for Mothers.
Yeah.
My problem with still, the original accusation that we're not concerned is that I mean, I can't think of anybody. Now, we've been running pregnancy care centers since the late 70s. And, I have visited all of them. I have gotten to know people who have, worked in the trenches, did incredible sacrificial things to work there, to care for people. I can't think of one of them, even on their worst day, who seem to have a dislike for mothers or for women. I mean, they just, we have different rules, that we use in our centers to try to protect women, try to protect our people who are working there. Try to always have somebody with you when you meet with a client coming in, or don't be alone. Try to don't take them out driving. Don't drive them in your car. That kind of thing. And I'm aware of the fact that a lot of them still will find some way to go out of their way to help a mother, to help somebody who's facing it. There isn't even, I can't even think of evidence outside of the organization where this statement would be remotely true, that we don't care.
So I guess then it does beg the question, how do we prove to the other side, essentially, that we do care about women? How do we encourage people to see that we really do care about women?
I relate most things in life to food. And there was a commercial years ago with the cutest little girl ever. And it was a commercial for, I think it was taco kits, those ones for when you make at home. So they have the taco seasoning and things like that. And there was these two groups who were competing against each other. They had different ideas. And one side was all about the soft shell tacos. And the other side was all about the hard shell tacos. And there was no agreeing. And it shows this little girl saying, why don't we have both? And they lift her up on their shoulders and they celebrate her, and everyone's happy. Everyone eats better tacos, which, I mean, talk about world peace. That's probably how we do it. And I feel like we can extend that idea to this as well. If you go, for example, to the March for Life, you will see sign after sign, shirt after shirt that says things like pro-life is pro-woman or love them both. And I think a lot of times the people who are doing the most good in the world don't talk about it. They don't have time to be talking about it because instead of talking, they're walking the walk, right? They're making a difference. And especially culturally, in a lot of our circles, they're these very humble, servant-hearted people. And I think that creates challenges with this because they're doing amazing things, but they don't tell anybody. And so I think we have to start kind of ratting out our friends. I think we have to start publicly talking about what our friends are doing and start these dialogues. If you volunteer at a pregnancy center, share about it. If your friend just dropped off the most beautiful handmade blanket ever and you saw a mom receive it and she held on to it like it was the most precious thing she'd ever seen. We have to talk about the friend that we have that is allowing a pregnant girl from her church to stay with them. We have to talk about these sorts of things. So I think it can happen at different levels. I think it can happen on our social media. There's lots of feel-good stories out there. Christian Life Resources creates great content. Students for Life of America, Live Action, lots and lots of great content out there that, again, is showing in real life the impact. I think we also need to share the stories of those who have experienced unplanned pregnancies and felt support. There's a quote I saw recently. It was from a report called Hope for a New Generation. I'm going to read it to you. It was a woman out of Las Vegas who had gotten support from pro-lifers. And this is what she said. She said, "I was ready to give up on my baby's life because I wasn't emotionally or financially prepared. I felt lonely and hopeless. My personal advocate spoke words of hope and encouragement. I then met with a counselor, and she helped me see that I had other options and resources available. After I spoke with them both, I had a renewed confidence to keep my baby. Every time I came in for a prenatal appointment or a class, I felt so loved and supported, and that continued to give me hope." So if you are involved with a pregnancy center, if you do hear a great story, share it. Don't be shy about it. When we go to a great restaurant, hopefully, if we're good friends, we're telling everybody we know. You forget tacos? If you find a fantastic taco truck, I feel like you are obligated to tell your friends that enjoy Mexican, right? And so we have to start being bold about this. And I think pastors have a wonderful opportunity with this too. They're in a leadership position. They are able to reach a large, hopefully, group of people every week. And so also sharing about the ways you can partner. I'm so thankful for congregations like Trinity Creek and Trinity in Union Grove and Crown of Life Hubertus, who are all helping us offer miscarriage support. Unless people hear about it, they're not going to know. We have the opportunity to tell them something wonderful, and they can be a part of it. They can experience that joy of walking with someone who goes through a hard time, because we all go through hard times. And I like to think of it as we're equals. And so we're all going to go through different seasons. There's going to be seasons where I'm going to be beyond grateful that God has given me Christian friends to support me. And there's going to be times that are rough for them. And hopefully they're not the same time. And then I can give them a little bit of encouragement. And so it's definitely a lifestyle. And part of being authentic means sharing about what's going on in our lives. And the beautiful thing is, for a lot of these pro-lifers, what's going on in their life is they are walking with people who felt alone and helpless. And they're learning that not only will these friends be there, but God's going to be with them every moment. At 2 a.m. when the baby's crying, they have someone right there who thinks that that woman is beyond precious, that she was worth dying for. And I think that can be really powerful.
I think it's also valuable for the pro-life community to practice a lot of patience, because when women sometimes have, wanted to have an abortion, saw the ultrasound, got the counseling, it's a flood of emotion. You had mentally kind of talked yourself into the idea that I'm going to go through with the abortion and so forth, and now you've created a conflict, and so they're not always going to be open to any kind of help that you want to offer, because sometimes the help that they were, I used to always tell people in my congregation who would come to me for counseling, I would say, don't come to me for counseling. If I agree with you, then I'm a great counselor. If I don't agree with you, then I'm a dope. They don't want that counseling. And so sometimes abortive-minded women will come in looking for somebody to endorse, to back them up on their decision to have an abortion. And you won't find that in a pro-life center, but that puts the onus on us as pro-life people to patiently work with them and just say, I am willing to do all sorts of sacrificing for you. I'll drive you to some of your appointments. I will make the connections. If you decide to place your child for adoption, I'm going to go with you. I will hold your hand through it all. I am not going to go with you if you wish to terminate the child's life. But many of our people who are working in our centers will be there when they come back, even when they've made the decision to abort. Why? Because quite honestly, we deeply love women. We deeply are concerned for them, and we want to show the kind of support and compassion that we know from Jesus. There is no room in the pro-life community for self-righteousness. All of us are very introspective, and we recognize, God's love for us and Jesus, and that's what pushes us to be concerned for them both, or both the mother and the child.
So naturally, I think of people I've known when I think about this. So there is a family that I'm very close to, and her life was not going well when she found out she was pregnant. I'm the honorary godmother for one of her kids. That's happened at different times, and it's a huge blessing. And after she made the adoption plan, after she had the baby, not surprisingly, she had some baby blues. She had a difficult time. And it meant a lot of phone calls, and it meant me sending her care packages and things like that. She knew that she had people that were going to be there with her through the whole process. And even when she was making her decision, she knew that our love for her wasn't conditional. It wasn't based on her choices. And like Bob mentioned, that's because we are trying to emulate Christ, who doesn't say that when I inevitably screw up, that he's going to love me less or not be there for me. He's going to be there for me no matter what because of who he is. And so in the same way, we are going to support them and love them because of who God says they are. He says that they're valuable. And I think of some of my friends who have an abortion in their past, and they are amazing, powerful women. And Satan would love nothing more than to use something like an abortion to break them. And instead, we get to be there, and we get to love them, and we get to support them, and we get to point them to Jesus, who can bring healing that nobody else can.
And that's why the spiritual component is so central in what we do, because there is no other technique out there or conversational piece that people have with others who can tell you that even when you make horribly wrong decisions, that there's forgiveness. And there's always this notion that, and we experience that a lot, where when people begin to learn about the humanity of an unborn child and heartbeats and brain waves and all of those things, they just start concluding, I should not have had that abortion. It was a terrible thing I did, and I'm going to live with it for the rest of my life, and so forth. And Christian pro-life people are the ones who are uniquely gifted to be able to tell them that has been forgiven. Jesus took it all on him, and there is no greater benefit as a Christian pro-life person than to announce that message. And it will take time for that to sink in, because we all like to drag along the guilt. But that's what makes our work, especially important, and again, especially mother-centric.
What are some practical ways that we can encourage everybody to get involved and to show that we really do care about women?
Everyone has a different bandwidth. Everyone has different gifts and interests. And so, as I mentioned, some people, their sweet spot is prayer support. For other people, it's writing cards of encouragement. For some people, it's financial. We know that none of this ministry can happen without support. Clothes cost things. Keeping the lights on costs money. And so that's one piece for some people. Being a mentor. I'm involved with a group called Embrace Grace at my church. And so sometimes it's sending encouragement to the moms, sending them just a little text to encourage them. Who doesn't have time to send a quick text? With our Home for Moms, we're always looking for more women and men to walk with these young ladies, to encourage them. And it can be things like a fun painting night. On Thursday, some of us are going to get together. We're going to make homemade pizzas. And again, that's a way for us to put into action these pro-life beliefs.
Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And if anyone listening to has any questions, you can always reach out to us at lifechallenges.us. And we look forward to having all of our listeners back next time. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Life Challenges podcast from Christian Life Resources. Please consider subscribing to this podcast, giving us a review wherever you access it, and sharing it with friends. We're sure you have questions on today's topic or other life issues. Our goal is to help you through these tough topics, and we want you to know we're here to help. You can submit your questions as well as comments or suggestions for future episodes at lifechallenges.us. or email us at podcast@christianliferesources.com. In addition to the podcasts, we include other valuable information at lifechallenges.us, so be sure to check it out. For more about our parent organization, please visit christianliferesources.com. May God give you wisdom, love, strength, and peace in Christ for every life challenge.